Hey guys, it's Vandiazel, back and I have another Card Fight Vanguard deck profile. So if you guys enjoy, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and donate to the Patreon. And let's get this one started. Today we have Brandt, Seraph Snow, my least favorite deck. Not because I don't like Tamari, despite the fact that is somewhat true that I don't like Tamari. What do I mean somewhat? I don't like Tamari in general, but Seraph Snow, it's an interesting deck. It has the aesthetic of Dimension Police Justice. It's themed around that anyways. But it's not my cup of tea. It feels like Chaos just invaded Dimension Police and tried to make a thing with it, but feels weird when it does it. Hopefully the new Seraph Snow will fix that for me, but I don't think it will. It looks cool though, so we'll give that a try. So let's go ahead and get this started because I know some people find this deck fun. I find it okay. In set 3, I do find it a bit more fun than usual. So each set it makes it better, I guess. So let's go ahead and get started. First up, we have our starter in Aurora Battle Princess Ruby Red. 6k base, 5k shield, grade 0 with boost. Auto, when it's rode upon, if you win second, you get to draw a card. Nothing too special about it. That is what literally every starter in D has. And it's okay, vanilla-ish. Nothing too special about it really, but it's cool. It's an Aurora Battle Princess, that's why it's here. Otherwise, I might just run Foivy because it's my favorite looking one out of the starter bunch here. But Ruby Red fits the bill a lot. Just Ruby Red wins. So, yeah. Next up, we have our Over Trigger in Star Dragon Deity of Infinitude, Eldo Breath. 5k base, 50k shield, grade 0 with boost. Over Trigger, you might have one Over Trigger in your deck. When you build as a trigger, remove that card, draw a card, choose one of your units, expose one million for the turn. If revealed during your draft check, activates additional effect, which is double the power and critical of all front row units until end of turn, increased to double its power and crit when activated. So, this thing, it gives 1 million to someone, and you get the draw, obviously, which is not important. You get the 1 million to someone, and then that 1 million gets doubled, followed by that unit's current critical. And that just goes for the whole front row. Thankfully, even with Gravidia, you cannot spend 1 million to the whole front row unless you only have two front row, unless you only have 2 units, including one of them being the Vanguard. Thankfully, that's not how this works. If it was, Eldo Breath might hit the ban list, or a thing that allows us would hit the ban list. One of those two. All around, really scary, because someone's hitting for 2 million, and at least double critical. Maybe even quad crit. I don't know. I'm somewhat terrified to find out. Either way, Eldobar is really good. Get you that power, get you that critical. I feel like Obari and this can be interchanged, because Obari gets you more power in general, but this one gets you more crit pressure, because it gives everyone at least a double crit if they had crit to begin with. So I prefer Eldo Breath because it adds that pressure, especially because they're already resource restricted. But if you think your prison deck needs that power with Obari, run Obari. Because Obari does have use. Just because it's a Trada card doesn't mean it doesn't have its use. So I would consider running Obari. I prefer the crit pressure, but if you think your version of the deck needs the power, go for Obari. So 1 copy of Eldo Breath. Our remaining triggers are 3 copies of Aurora Battle Princess Amy Orange. Okay, before people start going off of me for this. 1, I don't run Robocop because it's not an Aurora Battle Princess. We all know how I build my decks. I'm not going to go over it again. If you want to know how I build my decks, literally go watch any of my other deck profiles and you will get an actual answer from it because I don't feel like going over it right now. But also, I run the draw trigger. I would still run the draw trigger anyways if I wasn't like this because, on occasions, you will need hand cards. It doesn't matter how much power you get if you don't have units to take advantage of it. That's like saying you ride a grade 1 and then you go for Vanguard swing when you have 2 grade 1s in hand, you drive trigger front trigger. Okay, your whole front row gets plus 10k, but there's nothing in the front row to take advantage of that. That's your fault. You have nothing to use, maybe because you don't actually have grade 1s in hand. So, you need those draw triggers to help you get the units that you need to help make plays with, like Turquoise or Lemon, or even just use Persona Rides, or even more guarding power, because on occasions, if this deck faces against another deck that can get momentum really quickly and have a lot of power, such as Bruce, yeah, this deck will struggle if the deck can get a massive counterattack really quickly, but otherwise it will be fine. So, you need that defensive, or you need the ability to get your rear guards out. That's why I run draws. You need them, even if it gets you closer to decking out. Sometimes you got to play life on the edge to get the overall better win. So 3 copies of Amy Orange. 4 copies of Front Rose, the 10k front. I will still shove in the 10k front. Now, here's why I don't run the 20k front, the front with the 20k shield. It's a Cardinal Draco. Once more, if you want to know the reason why I do this, go watch another deck profile and you'll get an actual explanation from it. But otherwise, I run this one because it's Aurora Battle Princess. That's how I build my decks. Call it stupid if you want. It works for me. It may not work for you. You do you. I do me. We don't do each other. Probably. I don't know. I don't know the future. 4 copies of this thing. 4 copies of Aurora Battle Princess Lori's Yellow. I already explained why I don't run the crit. And 4 copies of Aurora Battle Princess Terese Green. So, we got the rainbow over here. We got the draw to help us get resource. We got the fronts to help us put out power. We have the crit to help put out crit pressure. And we have the heal, which shows up in my hand a lot. So on to our grade 1s. We first got 4 copies of Aurora Battle Princess Zenith, one of our new grade 1s. Grade 1, boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Auto, when it's placed on rear, counterblast 1, choose an opponent's rear guard, imprison it in your prison, and soul charge 1 and feature that imprison card's grade. So, if you imprison a grade 0, you soul charge nothing. If you imprison a grade 1, soul charge 1. Grade 2, soul charge 2. Grade 3, soul charge 3. Way to get soul charge really easily so you can soul blast more for your later cards. And it's only cost of a counterblast and you still get an imprison out of it. Really nice. I do not run that grade 1 that says on place you swap out a card from your prison with a card on the opponent's field. It basically does that because I just don't like it. Even though it is for free, it feels pointless because in the deck there's almost no reason to run that. I can understand why you would run it, but I have never run into the situation where it become helpful. So 4 copies of Zenith. If you want to run that grade 1 over that, you can. I don't remember what it's called, but I'm pretty sure most of you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, 4 copies of Zenith though because I like it more. 4 copies of Violet Dragon, the only other card in this deck besides Elder Breath that gets the freedom of not being an Aurora Battle Princess. 6k base, grade 1, boost, 0 shield, continue Sentinel. We have to 4 Sentinels in your deck. Auto one's placed on guard circles, choose one of your units, it cannot be turned to battle. If your hand has 2 or more cards, choose a card from your hand and discard it. So, standard PG, nothing too special about it. If this and only one other card in your hand, when you play this, you don't have to discard anything, which is really nice, because it allows you to play as reckless as you want to and still be able to complete guard stuff, which is quite literally what I did against my friend the other day, just because I was playing stupid and it somehow worked out for me winning. So Violet Dragon, really nice. All the PGs are really nice, getting you the ability to play slightly recklessly or even push you down into a corner, and you'll still be able to PG everything. So 4 copies. 1 copy of our last grade 1, and the grade 1 that goes in the Riot deck, Aurora Battle Princess Kainet Blue. 8k base, 5k shield, grade 1 with boost. Auto, when this unit is placed on van, search your deck for up to 1 prison card, reveal it, put it to your hand, and shuffle your deck. So the deck's main gimmick, you get a prison, and you add it to hand. Nothing too special about it, really nice. And auto, when it's placed on rear, if one or more cards are imprisoned in your, if one or more of your opponent's cards are imprisoned in your prison, counterblast 1, soul blast 1 to draw a card. That will never go off because you only run 1 of these, and there's no way to get it out of drop or in soul. So it's mainly here just to get you that prison card to hand, but everyone likes it for that, and you always want to go first with this deck because prison requires you to rest a unit to go off. I have called PGs for it. I don't regret those decisions at all. 1 copy of Kainet Blue. On to our grade 2s because we'll cover prison later. 2 copies of Aurora Battle Princess Dairy Violet. This thing I have a slight grudge against because when me and my friends were playing, we didn't know what Dairy Violet was or how it worked, and we didn't know that if it moved into guard circle, guarding it from hand, when intercepting with it, if that would count or not, and it did, unfortunately, which resulted in my loss. It was still a close match, and I have no hatred towards that. That's just how it goes sometimes. Sometimes skills are confusing and they end up screwing you over your plays, but that's how it is. It's just a matter of making it up and going on with it from there. So anyways, Dairy Violet. And for one of more of your opponent's cards on prison in your prison, soul blast 1, choose one of your units, and it cannot be hit by a grade 2 or lower unit's attack until in the battle. So basically a PG against grade 2 or lowers. Yeah, and I just have one more thing about that. I got screwed over by this because I forgot that it required them to have something in prison, and I had 1 card left in prison, and I got greedy with not wanting to pay my last cost to get it out of prison. And in reality, if I did, I literally would have won that game, but how it is, and now I'm very cautious every time that I think of Dairy Violet's in hand. So Dairy Violet's really good. Force them to use resources to call stuff out of prison, and if they don't, then Dairy Violet will screw them over. And if something does stay in prison, well, you got a separate PG in your hand. I don't run it at 4 because it still requires something to be in prison for it to go off, and it is kind of just fodder on rear guard and does nothing on rear guard, especially because you want certain 2 cards on rear guard. So 2 copies of this thing. If you want to turn it to 4, go ahead, but I prefer 2. 4 copies of our new grade 2, Aurora Battle Princess Cuff Spring. 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept. Auto, when it's placed on rear, your opponent chooses a card from their hand and prison it in your prison. If a card was in prison, your opponent draws a card. So a way to slowly deck them out because, they get a draw out of it, which is okay. But also, you know, you get to imprison a card from their hand, which is really nice, especially because all the cards that can do that. So it's a way to just get rid of resources or maybe future plans for them. 4 copies of Cuff Spring. 4 copies of Aurora Battle Princess Sparkle Lemon. 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept, auto rear. When this unit attack hits, you may choose up to 2 unit cards from your opponent's drop, and prison them in your prison, and you put them into your order zone that has a prison on it. So all around, that's really good. Adds on hit pressure, which I always like about cards because that makes them want to guard them, especially with the Vanguard, with having triple drive, they want to guard that. So now they can only take 1 attack a turn, which isn't really ideal for them, especially if they have a lot of cards in prison, because then they can't really do anything with it. And if it does hit, you get 2 more cards in prison. So all around, it's a really nice card for Lemon because it increases, you know, the amount of cards in your prison. 4 copies of her because she's just amazing. 4 copies of Aurora Battle Princess Perio Turquoise. 10k base, 10k shield, 5k shield. I'm sorry, I forgot that the English version has that errata on it. That small little typo. I don't know how they put a 10k shield in this grade 2, but it's a 5k shield. Ignore the art. Grade 2 with intercept. Continues rear guard during your turn. If 2 or more of your opponent's cards are imprisoned in your prison, it gets plus 5k power. So, you know, if they have 2, and basically if you're on Seraph Snow, which can imprison 2 at the same time, it's a 15k base, and auto front rear guard. When your opponent's card imprisoned and your prison is placed on rear, it loses 5k for that turn. So, a way to kind of make it so that their plays are slowed down, because if they call that stuff out of prison, yeah, they want to look to activate their abilities or maybe just boosted them because they're rear guards that they meant to call later. But now they have less power, so they kind of can't do anything as much as boosters / attackers, and now their only real purpose is what their skill was. So if they weren't like an on place or something whose skill was more important than their power, they're useless to you. So all around, Turquoise is really nice, especially against vanillas, even though they're probably never going to use vanillas because there's no reason to run vanillas in D. If they make reasons to run vanillas in D, this is a counter to them, because then they kind of have like, this will probably take away the benefit of running those vanillas. So Perio Turquoise is a really nice grade 2, and I love it. Definitely gave Prison the thing it needed to be competitive, or I guess gave it the thing it needed to feel good, because in my opinion, set 1 Prison was kind of like set 1 Eugene Hexa Orb, where Prison only felt slightly better because it had a trial deck, so it had something to work with, while Eugene Hexa Orb didn't. Turquoise fixed that problem entirely. 4 copies of Turquoise. Amazing card. And then our last grade 2 is 1 copy of our main grade 2 who goes in the Riot deck, Aurora Battle Princess Razot Pink, 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept. Auto, when it's placed on Van, your opponent chooses a card from their hand and prisons it in their prison. So, in your prison. So basically, if the prison's already out on board, you take a card from their hand. This is why you want to play that prison early and why you want to go first when you search with Cayenne Blue over here, because if you don't have the prison out when Razot Pink comes out, you cannot imprison something from their hand, which sucks. So you either have to rest your Vanguard and give up on those drive checks if you go second, or call down a PG, which somehow always happens to me because I will always have a PG in my hand. So Razot Pink is worth it, honestly, though, because she gets rid of a hand card, and the skill that no one likes, continuous rear. If you're one or more of your opponent's cards are imprisoned in your prison, it gets +2. No one likes that. I only ran this thing at 4 back in set 1 because I wanted most Aurora Battle Princesses as physically possible. I don't regret that decision, but I hated that decision a lot. 1 copy of Razot Pink, there is no reason to run it outside of the Riot deck. If they gave us a way to call it from Soul, I feel like you could just call Cayenne Blue instead. So 1 copy of Razot Pink, because she still does do something good because she gets rid of a hand card, but still. And then we have our only grade 3 in our last normal unit, and 4 copies of Aurora Battle Princess Seraph Snow, 3 in the main deck, 1 in the Riot deck, 13k base, grade 3 200 Persona Ride, continues Van during your turn. If 1 or more of your opponent's cards are imprisoned in your prison, it gets +10. If 3 or more are imprisoned, it gets +1 drive. You want to be careful with that part, because you could just set up and get, 3 in the prison really easily, especially in this deck, but that will increase your drive checks, which is fine in the early game, but that means you would deck out quicker, especially with draw triggers in the deck, even without draw triggers. Somehow, I see decks that don't run draw triggers deck out quicker than my deck that does run it. I don't understand how that is possible, but that happens. So, be very careful with that. Like, even if you just want to imprison 2 cards just because you think that extra drive isn't worth it, go for it. Like, I'm not going to shun you for that, because that's actually really smart, because you'll deck yourself out less as fast than you would if you actually did imprison that 3rd card. Now, if you think you're going to need those drive checks, go for it, but I will actually question sometimes, is it worth doing it now when it might deck me out later? So that 10k, you can still do it just to get the 10k, but try not to get that extra drive if you don't need it. Do it if you do need it. So 23k with that triple drive is really nice. And act Van rear guard once per turn. Counterblast 1, choose 2 of your opponent's rear guards and imprison them in your prison. Way to get a lot of cards in prison really easily. In the child deck, that kind of sucked because you had to waste one of your persona rights to do it because you didn't have a lot of cards that can get stuff in prison for that 3 cards in prison skill to get the drive. But now you get a lot of cards in prison really easily. They just have to have rear guards, can take 2 of your opponent's rear guards at once, and can even be used on rear guard when we upgrade our Seraph Snow, we still have reasons to run this one because unlike all the other main grade 3s, it has a rear guard skill. So all around, Seraph Snow is really good. Got those 4 with that 10k, the drive, and the ability to imprison 2 cards. 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the Riot deck. And then on to our last 2 cards, which both of them are orders. 2 copies of Galaxy Central Prison Galacticus, grade 1 set order, the first set order in this game. Rest 1 of your units to play this card. Auto when it's placed into order zone, so charge 3. So, you either have to rest your Vanguard kind of blue if you're going first, or call down a PG or trigger, or maybe the Zenith, because I know I have to call Zenith at some point just to get that skill up, but I say it's worth it to get that, not for the Soul Charge 3, which is helpful, but, just to use Razot Pink the next turn. It contains Order Zone. When your opponent would call a card call a rear guard, they can perform the following: either Soul Blast 1 to call 1 of their imprisoned cards to rear, or Counterblast 1 to call 2 of their imprisoned cards to rear. Now, that is why this is here. You don't use it for that Soul Charge 3, despite the fact that it's helpful. You put it here so that there's a place to put their imprisoned cards into, make them waste resources like Counterblast, Soul Blast. This is a deck that can damage deny really easily and kind of just screw them over. Wait it out until they have no resources, slowly kill them, and then boom, they're dead. And as they're trying to make plays, they're losing resources. Turquoise makes it harder for them because it lowers their power, so it's harder for them to kill you, etc., etc. Galacticus is really nice for that order. If we get a new prison with the Seraph Snow, that would be so cool, especially if it does something really nice. But honestly, I think Galacticus is still fine, and I'm fine with it just being the only prison for now. So 2 copies of Galacticus. And then 3 copies of our last card is Moment of Capture, Aurora Battle Princess, 24-hour coverage, a card that they stole straight from Buddy Fight from Hero World, but I will still love that. Anyways, grade 2 normal order. Play it by Soul Blasting 1. If your opponent's hand has 4 or more cards, your opponent chooses a card from their hand and imprisons it in their prison. Then if 3 or more of your opponent's cards are imprisoned in your prison, you choose one of your units and gets plus 5k for the turn. Okay, you run it for the imprison in the hand. You don't run it for that 5k. If you use the 5k, you're most likely giving it to Lemon over here just so you can imprison more cards in your prison. But otherwise, you run it for that hand to, make sure that they have less guarding power, to make sure that they have to pay more to clear stuff out of prison, of course. But then again, if they know that you're trying not to get the extra drive, and this puts you to the extra drive, they might just be reluctant to keep it in there just because it screws over your plays. If they know that's what you're going for, that is. But most people, I feel like, would go for that extra drive regardless, so that won't really matter. So 3 copies of this order because it gets rid of a hand card and it gets you plus 5k, which can be done really easily if you have 3 or more cards in prison, which, like I said earlier, easy to do. And that's the deck, so I hope you guys enjoyed. It's okay, in my opinion. I know a lot of people find it fun. I don't find it fun, or I don't find it super amazing because it, makes it hard for your opponent to play. It's not what I would call full-out control deck because it at least allows them to play the game. Chaos literally doesn't let them do anything, and they had to ban Zinc for this. So speaks for itself. Gridora literally prevents them from calling from anywhere from hand and prevents them from standing units. Yeah, those are what I consider control decks, or full-out control decks. This still has a control deck vibe, but it's not something full-out control deck. So if there was almost no other decks to play, if there was a full control deck and then this, I would pick this because it at least allows the opponent to play, because I like letting my opponent play and I like seeing what they can do even in turn-back situations. But in all honesty, I don't like playing this deck. I still find it okay though, and I know a lot of people find it fun. So if you find it fun, go ahead, build this deck, use it as you wish. Change any cards you want in it, because I know a lot of people don't agree with my style, and I know I don't agree with a lot of other people's styles. So, you just do as you do, because your deck works for you. So I hope you guys enjoy. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join to the Patreon, join the Discord, follow the Twitch, and I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to stand up your Vanguards.